guys, welcome to Bastian Time. I am your host Bastian. This is Zelda news and Nintendo news. Let's get to that news. I'm sure you've already seen this, but somebody recreated the Temple of Time, specifically the Ocarina of Time version, in Unreal Engine 4, just to see what a super realistic Zelda game could look like. It's breathtaking. I know that there are tons of people out there for whom it's a given they'd want a realistic Zelda game, but in my mind, conceptually, when I think about it, I'm like, what's the point? Zelda always feels kind of cartoony to me. I don't need a realistic version. That would feel the opposite of what Zelda would feel like to me. Because I guess, you know, the main version of Zelda in my brain is probably, just like for all of you, the version that you first experienced, or the version that first really meant something to you. And while I did play the original Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, like, the biggest impression on me was A Link to the Past. So that's the iteration of Zelda that's strongest in my mind, and so a realistic Zelda feels out of step with that. Putting all of that aside, this makes me want a realistic Zelda. I know we'll probably never get one. We'll never get a Skyrim-y sort of realistic human proportions, but maybe we will get something that has all of this kind of texture and realism about it, hopefully. If you want to watch this whole video, there's a link for you down below. Our next story is about Bravely Default and the fact that it was originally going to have a completely different type of gameplay. Seems strange, but yeah, it was originally going to be an action RPG. We know so many origin stories about Bravely Default. It's very difficult to imagine how all of these things fit together, because one of the first things that we heard about it was it's the sequel to Final Fantasy IV Heroes of Light, which is a standard JRPG. So now that we're hearing that it was originally going to be an action-adventure game, that doesn't make any sense to me at all. It especially doesn't make any sense to me because Crystal Chronicles already fills that slot in the Final Fantasy universe. They already have the action-adventure, the action RPG style, and that's Crystal Chronicles. So they were going to have a third, because the Mana series started out as a Final Fantasy action RPG thing. Then eventually it became its own thing. Crystal Chronicles started out as a Final Fantasy action RPG. Then I guess eventually it became its own thing, so now they were going to take a third stab at a Final Fantasy action-adventure thing. They keep trying, why not just stick with one? Where's our next Crystal Chronicles game? It's just interesting to hear that originally Bravely Default was going to be an action RPG game. I love action RPGs, but I really love Bravely Default as it is. I might have loved it more as an action RPG, maybe. I don't know. Interesting, though. Analogue Nt is a very unusual sort of reproduction of the NES. Now, we've seen a lot of these things. Of course, you can't buy new NESs in the store, so what people have done, third-party companies, have now built machines that can play NES games. This is not that. This is something a little different. First of all, this is made out of metal, and it has a very sleek design, and it doesn't just play NES games, but also Famicom games, so if you have actual Famicom cartridges, it will play it. But what's really different about this is that it takes Nintendo's actual hardware and reconfigures it to allow for things like being able to play on your HD TV, being able to have the audio. It doesn't use the old, what would they call the RCV or something like that, connectors that you used to have to use that was like the screw-on thing. It now uses the newer type of connectors, which just, you know, plug in. And then you can have great stereo, great visuals, perfect pixels, no more scan lines. So it's very nice. However, it is $500. So the only people that are going to be buying this are the people who I don't really know, because I feel like the people who are going to be buying this the people who want to play actual NES cartridges, that don't want to do virtual console stuff, who want to play actual physical NES cartridges, are the same people who are going to want to play those on their actual NES and deal with the imperfections of how it translates onto the screen, and not be too worried about the fact that it's not in HD. So I don't really know who's buying this $500 thing. I was kind of tempted, but I wouldn't. At $500, that would be insane for me. So I don't know who's buying this, but I guess some people are. Our next story is about Nintendo's NFP technology. And so what that is on your gamepad, I forget where exactly, it can read NFS stuff. So what that is like Skylanders. You're probably familiar with Skylanders. It comes with that thing that you set the Skylander on. So the Skylander stores digital information like saves, and if you've leveled up your character, I think is something you can do in Skylanders. It saves all that information for that particular character on that figure, and you put it on that device, and then that device translates to the console. Well, that device is not necessary with the Wii U, because the Wii U's gamepad already has the ability to translate that info. So Nintendo is coming out with their own figures, and they have not gone so far as to say that they're creating a specific game for these figures, although I suspect they are. But they haven't said anything about that. What they have said is that they think that you'll be able to take these figures and use them between various games. They think, so what I think that could possibly mean is that future Skylanders installments on Nintendo hardware could have Nintendo characters in them. That would be pretty cool. I would finally definitely play Skylanders if I could play as Link. I mean, I want to play as Spyro too, but if I can play as Link in Skylanders, I'm down for it. I'm all for that. So I suspect that's going to happen, but I also think Nintendo themselves are going to develop various games, or maybe even the next Mario game. If you've got your Link character, you could play as Link in Mario. That'd be bizarre, but interesting. So that's all they've really said about it so far. I suspect we will get specific games at E3, so that we'll actually see this in practice, and that is what they promised. They have promised that at E3 they'll show how this technology is going to work. So that's something to look forward to at E3. We'll see what they have in store for us. That's it for this episode of Nintendo News. See you guys tomorrow for more news. Bye, guys.